Okay, so we're going to talk about muscles of the appendicular skeleton today. This is the last part of the muscular system that we have not covered. So it's going to be muscles of the arms, legs, and like the buttocks and the pelvic region. So the function of the muscles of the appendicular skeleton are basically to allow for movement of the arms and legs. So they support, move, and brace the limbs. They keep the limbs attached very nicely because, the skeleton just sits together. The tendons and the muscles and ligaments hold it on. So the upper limbs are mainly used for lifting, pulling, and holding things. We grab things with our hands. And then the lower limbs are for walking, running, standing, jumping, kicking, all of those things. And muscles play a role in all of these movements. So any movement that happens in your legs and arms is all going to be contributed to the muscles that are located on those bones. The first group of muscles we're going to talk about are the muscles of the shoulder joint. These muscles are divided into two groups. You have the dorsal and the ventral group. So the dorsal group is the group of muscles that are on the backside, like exterior. The ventral group are still on the back of the body, but they're in front of the shoulder blade. So they're in front of the scapula. So you can't see them from the front side of the body, but they're like deeper than the scapula. So they're a deep muscle. So the dorsal group, you have the deltoid, which is the actual shoulder muscle. So looking at your arm, when you look at your shoulder, where like you get an immunization, that is your deltoid. So on this one, it's on the left shoulder. A big muscle that covers the whole upper arm, shoulder area, that's your deltoid. You have the supra and the infraspinatus, and these are either above or below the spine of the scapula. So supra means above, infra means below, and spinatus is like of the spine. So these are either above or below the scapular spine. And if you look on this picture, on the left side, there is the infraspinatus, and you can see that there is a lower area here. And if you go look on the right side, you can clearly see the spine of the scapula, and you can see that the supraspinatus is above it, and then the area that pointed to the infraspinatus on the left side would be this area below the scapular spine. So there's one above and one below, and they both lie on the scapula. Then there's the teres minor and the teres major. These are on the lateral or below the scapula. So the teres minor is lateral to the scapula, like towards the outer arm. It's smaller, that's why it's called the minor. And the teres major is kind of below the scapula, like going down, so inferior of the scapula, not deep below, but inferior. And it's kind of going underneath the armpit on the back. The front side muscle is a subscapular muscle. So it means below the scapula, but this one means deep, below as in deep. So it's behind the ribs, but in front of the scapula. So it's on the other side, the front side of the scapula, which is still on the back side of the body, if that makes sense. So it's deeper than the scapula, going towards the middle of the body. Okay, so now we have muscles of the upper arm. So we talked about the deltoid, which is the shoulder muscle. The main part of the upper arm is going to be anterior and posterior muscle groups. So anterior, meaning the front, posterior, meaning the back. So on the front of your upper arm, you have your biceps brachii and your brachialis. So everybody knows what the biceps are, right? When you flex your arm to show your muscles, you're flexing your biceps. That's the biceps. The brachialis is this long muscle that goes from the deltoid all the way down through to the elbow. It's long and skinny, and it's kind of like mid of the arm. The posterior muscles of the arm are your triceps, which are opposite of your biceps, and then the brachioradialis. The brachioradialis runs from the brachial part of the arm all the way down to the radial part of the arm. So it extends from the upper arm to the forearm. It's the long muscle that goes down the whole middle of the arm. And it'll be a little bit more obvious how long it is in the next picture too. In this picture, you can see it's in the middle from these tendons here, and it comes all the way down over the elbow on the inside part of the arm, on the front of the arm if you're in anatomical position. And then when we're talking about anything armpit area, the term referring to that region is going to be axillary. So an axillary thermometer is like a thermometer you would use in the armpit area. The axillary region is the armpit area. So here we have muscles of the forearm and hand. So moving down past the elbow, we still have the brachioradialis, because remember, it connects the brachial part to the radial part. It extends the length of the arm. And in this picture, it's the red one. You can see how it goes over the elbow joint and goes down the radial side of the forearm on the thumb side. There's the extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis. So longus and brevis just means long and short. The longest is going to be the long one, and the brevis is going to be the short one. And if we take this muscle name and like pull it apart, extensor is going to be something that allows us to extend. Carpi refers to carpal or wrist, and radialis refers to radius. So this is going to be an extending muscle, or a muscle that extends down the radial side of the arm to the wrist that is long. The brevis one is going to be the same thing, but it's going to be an extender muscle running down the radius to the wrist that is shorter. So there's a longer and a shorter one. And if you guys look here at the blue, the top one is the long one, and the bottom one is the short one. So the top one's the longest, and the bottom one is brevis. And if you look, they run on the side of the arm, down towards the thumb, so they are radius side, the radialis, and they go to the wrist. They end at the wrist, so they're the carpi ones. Extensor digitorum. So digit refers to fingers. So anything that says digit or digitorum is gonna have to connect to the fingers or the toes, okay? So the extensor digitorum is the one that attaches to the 3 middle fingers. So it's the muscle that runs down the posterior side of your forearm and attaches to 3 middle fingers. So in this picture, it's the big yellow one. The extensor digit minimal. This is the one that goes to the minimal digit, or the tiniest digit, which would be your pinky finger. So that is going to be the green one. It's kind of buried, but it does come out and attach to the pinky finger, and you can see that in this picture. Then there's the extensor carpi ulnaris. It's going to be similar to the extensor carpi radialis one, except for this one's going to be on the ulna side, or the pinky side, instead of the thumb side or the radial side. So this one is going to be the purple one, and it's pretty thick at the top, and then it comes down and it attaches just to the pinky. So that's the one that goes to the wrist area. Carpi means wrist, and you can see the purple muscle ends like right at the wrist. There is a tendon, but the muscle stops at the wrist, and it's on the ulna side. The anconeus, that's your like elbow area muscle. It's this little orange colored one right in the elbow area. And then you have these things called dorsal interosseous muscles. And these are similar to the interosseous membranes in your arms and legs, but these go in between your fingers. So when you're looking at your palm, you have bones across your palm, right? Your metacarpals. There's muscle in between them, because if you grab your hand and you like cup it, we can move our hand and stuff. We have muscles in our palm. The muscles between those bones, between your metacarpals, those are your dorsal interosseous membranes. They are on the back side of your hand because they're on the dorsal side. So when you're holding your hand's palm up, they're not on that side. They're on the other side, the back of the hand. And those are the interosseous muscles of the hand. So the muscles of the pelvic girdle. So this is going to be the ilium and ischium area. So you have the obturator internus. And this is the muscle that comes out of that hole on the bottom of the pelvis, and like down where the ischium and pubis meet. So there's that big hole there, and that's called the obturator foramen. So the obturator internus is the muscle that attaches to that, and it attaches from the top of the femur, the femoral head area, back to the actual obturator foramen. That's the obturator internus. Then you have the psoas minor and the psoas major. So the psoas minor and major secure the pelvic girdle to the spine. The psoas minor is the tiny one on top, and it goes from the lower thoracic or the upper lumbar area of your vertebrae. It attaches down through your hip, down to your leg. So the tiny one on top is the minor, and the big, thick, much, much fatter one is the major. And they're going to secure the pelvic girdle to the vertebrae. And then you have the iliacus. Well, that's going to be on the ilium. So if you guys look at the ilium here, it looks like a big elephant ear, and there's a big muscle that lays inside of that. That's the iliacus. Its name matches its location. All right, muscles of the butt. So a lot of these names are going to sound really familiar because I'm pretty sure everybody knows gluteus maximus, right? So gluteus maximus is the big, meaty muscle on the external part of the buttocks. So the muscle that is on the outside area, like if you like push on your butt and you feel a muscle there, you're going to feel the gluteus maximus. It's way bigger and it's external. Underneath that, you have your gluteus medius, and it's deeper inside. So below it, depth-wise, so closer to the bone. So you have the gluteus medius. And the whole area of the buttocks is referred to as the gluteal region. So if you ever want to refer to the area, and that it's going to be gluteal region. If you hear the term gluteal, it's referring to the buttocks. All right, so muscles of the thighs and hip. So let's talk about anterior or the front side. First, we have our quads. Okay, so your quads are really called your quadriceps femoris, and they're called quads because 4 muscles make up this one muscle group. Okay, so the 4 muscles that are part of it are the rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis, the vastus medialis, and the vastus intermedius. So the rectus femoris is the big, longest one that goes right down the middle of the front of the leg. So this one actually, if you look in the picture, it starts up near the hip and it comes all the way down, and then it turns into a tendon right above the kneecap. This tendon is called the patellar tendon, and that actually goes down and attaches to your tibial tuberosity on your tibia. So that is what secures down your quads. It connects over the patella to the tibial tuberosity, holds the patella in place. Patellar tendon. So that's the rectus femoris. The vastus lateralis and the vastus medialis are the 2 that are on either side. So the medialis is going to be on the inside and the lateralis is going to be on the outside of the leg. So if you look at this picture, the one on the outer side to the rectus femoris is the vastus lateralis. It's a big thick muscle on the outside of the leg. Then you have the vastus medialis, and that's the big thick muscle on the inside of the leg. Remember, medial and lateral mean inside and outside. The last one is the vastus intermedius. So this one's not in the picture, but it's going to be in between. If you move the rectus femoris, you can see it. On the leg diagrams that I give you, you'll be able to see it a lot easier. But that's going to be kind of below the rectus femoris, in between the medialis and the lateralis. Then you have the sartorius. So the sartorius muscle goes from the hip across the leg, like a band across, and then connects down by the knee. So look at this picture, it literally wraps from the outside of the hip down towards the inside of the knee. It goes all the way across. That's the sartorius muscle. Then you have the adductor longus, which is on the inside coming out of the groin area. It's a big muscle that comes from the groin area and goes down below the quads, like deeper than the quads. And then you have the pectineus, which is next to the adductor longus, but more lateral. So it's coming from the middle of the body going towards the outer leg. It's right next to it. It's underneath the sartorius muscle. So the muscles of the back side of the thigh and hip, obviously you have the gluteus maximus, which is going to be the butt, right? So that's going to be the top part. Then you have the adductor magnus, which is on the medial side of the leg, but it's really, really big and thick. So the adductor magnus is very medial, but thick. More medial to that is this really tiny, thin, long muscle called the gracilis. So it's very medial. It's very like in the middle side. But it's really tiny. So the thin one is the gracilis, and the big one is the adductor magnus. Then you have the biceps femoris, which is the big meaty muscle towards the lateral side of the leg. And then you have the semimembranosus and the semitendinosus muscles. So the semitendinosus muscle is going to be the one that turns into the tendon down by the knee, much higher. It's pretty much down the middle of the back of the thigh. And it's going to come down, and the tendon is going to go to the medial side of the knee. And then medial to that, so further in from that, between the adductor magnus and the semitendinosus, is a semimembranosus. So this one doesn't turn into a tendon as high up as the semitendinosus. It stays muscle for much longer, but it follows the same path as the semitendinosus muscle. So anything referring to the thigh region is going to be the femoral region. And then again, the back of the knee, which we've talked about before, but just to refresh, the back of the knee is called the popliteal region. All right, so lower leg. So down here is where we have our tib and our fib. So I told you guys this name before, but the calf muscle is really called the gastrocnemius. It's a very weird name, very hard to spell. That's what it's really called, gastrocnemius. So the big chunky muscle on the backside of the knee, your calf, is your gastrocnemius. In this picture, it's really, really thick. The calf goes down and connects to your calcaneus or your heel by the Achilles tendon. So this tendon that connects the calf to the foot is the Achilles tendon. If you cut this, you cannot lift your foot. You lose all function of being able to lift and lower your foot because your calf is no longer attached to the foot. So the muscle that moves those bones is no longer attached to them. You have the tibialis anterior, which its name tells you exactly where it's at. It's on the front side of the tibia. So this is your shin muscle. This is the muscle that starts hurting and pulling on the bone when you get shin splints. So that whole front of your shin is a tibialis anterior. Then you have the soleus. So this one goes down and connects down by the Achilles tendon as well. So it runs below the calf muscle, as in like deeper, and it goes down and it kind of merges to the Achilles tendon. So it's on the backside, lower. Then you have the fibularis, longus, and brevis, and these are also called the peroneus, longus, and brevis. So peroneus doesn't really give an area, but fibularis does. So fibularis tells you it's on the fibula, and longus and brevis again mean long and short. So looking at the fibula, you have two muscles that run down it. One is on top and it's really thick and long, and one is a little bit deeper and lower, and it's smaller and thinner. So the big one is the longus, and the small one is the brevis, and they lay on top of the fibula. So their names are fibularis or peroneus. Same name, or different name, same muscle. Then you have the extensor digitorum longus. This is very similar to the extensor longus of the arm, where it connects to the three middle fingers. This one goes down the front of the leg and attaches to the three middle toe areas. So it extends underneath the tibialis anterior from like the knee area all the way down. It's deeper than the tibialis anterior, rides down the front of the tibia, and then it goes and it connects to the three middle toes. Lastly, we have the muscles of the foot. There's not a whole lot to remember here. You have the flexor digitorum brevis, which, remember, digitorum or digit means toes or fingers. So the flexum digitorum brevis is going to be the one that goes to the three middle toes of the foot. And then these are going to be the ones that are on top of the foot, not from the leg, okay? And then there's the abductor digiti minimi. And remember, digit minimum means like pinky, right? So the adductor digiti minimi is going to be the one on the pinky toe. And then you have the abductor hallucis, which goes to the hallux. And if you guys remember when we talked about feet bones, the hallux is your great toe. So this one is going to be the muscle that allows for you to abduct or move away from. So like moving your big toe away from the rest of your feet. This is going to be the abductor hallucis, which goes on top of into the outside of your big toe. So the flexor digitorums are on the three middle toes, and there's a little piece that goes over the pinky toe. Doesn't really do a whole lot because can't move our pinky toe a lot. The adductor digiti minimi goes to the little mini, the minimal size digit, which is the pinky. And then the hallux is the big toe. So the abductor hallucis is the one that's on the big toe. So if you can remember the key terms in the name, it can help you find the location of the muscle. A lot of these muscles are named for the location. So using those terms will really help you. Like the tibialis anterior. Well, anterior means front. Tibialis obviously means tibia. So front of the tibia. Some, like gastrocnemius or latissimus dorsi, don't really help you in their location. But a lot of them, their names will give away the area that they're located in. And that is the last of the muscles of the appendages. We've covered pretty much all of them. Make sure you go back and review the muscles from the torso, head, and neck as well.